Hello and welcome to another edition of My Media Life, brought to you by the World Media Group. My name is Arif Durrani, and in each edition we speak to an interesting leader from the world of media and marketing to find out a little bit about their career path, any advice they have for those starting out today, the media they find inspiring, and much more besides. So do stay tuned. Now today we have a real treat. We have a Chief Creative Officer from Asia Pacific, Natalie Lam, Chief Creative Officer at Publicis Groupe across Asia Pacific and Middle East and Africa, joins us. Natalie, many thanks for joining us today.
Well, thanks for inviting.
I mean, tell us a little bit about your remit, because it sounds huge. It sounds like you're straddling half a world there creatively for Publicis Groupe, which is one of the biggest marketing groups in the world. So tell us about the setup.
Yeah, so it is a huge region, a few different continents, and many places that I haven't really been to because of COVID. So essentially, we're operating as a group, right? So we focus on 4 areas: creative, data, tech, and media. And then obviously there's different agencies. So the creative brands in all the markets, there are your Leo Burnett, Saatchi, Publicis, and then the digital brands are Razorfish, Digitas, and then we have PR brands such as MFSL and media, obviously Starcom. So we really work as an integrated group, and what we offer is the power of one solution. And my specific focus, since a little bit more than a year ago, I start with creative. I mean, obviously the end goal is we have a integrated offering that combines all 4 areas, right? But right now my focus is starting with all the creative agencies and the creative community of 3,000 plus people with creative in their title from all the different agencies and, all the different markets. So yeah,
incredible.
So as one big community.
You're based in Hong Kong.
Yes.
Sorry, yeah. So you're based in Hong Kong, just setting the context for people. So there's all of those well-known and well-respected agencies with so many people with creative in their job title, like you say. How on earth does one person sort of oversee the creative output?
Wow, it's impossible, right? I mean, I wouldn't use the word oversee, and I would use the word collaborate. I mean, because at the end of the day, everybody has used this term. It's all about the teamwork, right? We are a talent business. We're at the end of the day, and it's all about the talents and all about, what can we do together as a strong team rather than what each one individual can do. It's just impossible. So for me, yes, as in the beginning, it's very overwhelming. I have the same question as you. And then at the end of the day, after a while, I just realized there's common themes, right? So, in all the markets, having strong creative teams, having strong sort of specialists, right? Your classic copy art. Now, I also think that we're in a digital age. So like in my eyes, integrated talent is critical, as well as craft, design and craft talent. So I think at the end of the day, it's about whether in all the markets and all the teams, do we have the right setup? Do we have the right teams with the right skill sets and with the right sort of specialties set up? And then if the market has the right people set up, great, then they can just be really operating on their own without a lot of sort of I don't want to use the word supervision, right? But without a lot of effort, right? And as in some markets, yes, I mean, because of market scale, because of size, and then the talent concentration, maybe they don't have some specialists and whatnot, then this is where my role comes in, right? I can I can really leverage the network and leverage the community to say, hey, if you need for example, a designer, a really, really amazing designer, you don't have one in your market, then there's, your neighbors has someone like that. So we can connect you and help you out. So I think my role it's a lot about being a connector, mm-hmm. being sort of like a traffic control in a way, where I see all the actions that are going in, and then I see where things are stuck, and then where things are going smoothly, and then I kind of figure out how to use our resources and how to use our specialists to just smooth out everything and then make sure that everything is well running. And then also, from time to time, I do work on projects and then lead clients and brands myself. So then that's where I go really deep with the local teams, and then also connect with the local clients to elevate the output and then to broaden the thinking and then all that good classic creative stuff.
Yeah, so you still get time to do that, do you, sometimes?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have to. Actually, it's good or bad, right? The teams I work very, very closely with, I don't give up until the last detail is taken care of.
Yeah, okay, it makes sense. That's great. Thank you for that overview. It's really interesting. Now, what does the media industry mean to you?
It's really interesting because when I first saw this question, I was like, what does media mean, right? I mean, in the advertising world, media agencies, that's one very, very specific thing. But then the media world with brands and publishers, that's a very, very different thing. So I think your question is about, the media world, such as the New York Times, the Guardians, out there. I think it means a lot. It means everything because even though I've been in Hong Kong for a year plus, I still go check out New York Times. It's still my go-to to sort of get like a more balanced perspective in the world. And then absolutely,
we purposely didn't define that first question because we think it's interesting how people interpret it. I mean, obviously, some agencies will see it as media agencies. Some people will see it as an editorial question. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so for you in your career, the media, I imagine, has been the interface where your creative work meets the consumer.
Yeah, and I guess now everything is a media, right? If you look at it in a very broad sense, all of us are walking medias. And social media, so it depends on who's behind it, I guess, and then who's the ultimate, sort of like on the consumption end of it. It's a really interesting question.
Okay, what's one piece of advice that has helped in your career, would you say?
Oh, there's so many, but I think one thing that I got early on, and I was pretty surprised, is listen well. And I'm glad that I got that in very, very early because I was just starting, and then I was always wondering how come, when did my work get recognized, and then when would it not, right? And then it doesn't seem like there was a rhyme or reason. And I think how it was back in the days is very hierarchical. And then when you're a junior, you just did everything that your seniors told you so. And then a lot of people rarely bother to explain. And then as juniors, where a lot of times we try everything and then we cross our fingers and then hope something would work. And then, so after a long time of this guessing, finally, I think in one of my reviews, that was the advice, right? And then I think I learned to really listen to every single word that every single person says, and then I put what they say and then what the outcome is together. And sometimes I sort of deduct the conclusion of the cause and effect. And then sometimes sometimes it's much more obvious, and then sometimes it's not. But I think listen well.
Yeah,
and it's a really good advice for me.
Yeah, it's a great piece of advice for sure. What's the favorite thing about your current job?
Oh my God. I always tell people that this is cultural tourism. So every single market is so different, so diverse. Every team is so different. The personalities are different. I mean, I think that's the first word I use in describing my experience. I mean, you can basically travel around the world just by being on Teams calls. So I think, and we in the past 2 years, we excelled at making a lot out of nothing, and just by standing in front of a computer, doing Zoom or Teams calls. So every time I talk to a team from a different market, I learn something new. I learn a little bit more about the culture. Obviously, it's not the same as actually being there, right? I mean, being there is so much more multidimensional, but just a little bit that I'm talking to people and then observing them, their mannerisms, their little jokes, and then habits and whatnot, their expressions, all of that, I learn a lot. And endless things to learn, I mean, I think right now I'm only learning probably the top 10 sort of like cliche things that tourists know about each market that I haven't been to yet. So a lot more. So it's just fascinating.
Give us some of your favorite insights into different markets. Is there anything you've learned locally recently, which is, like you say, maybe a cliche, but you found to be true, or any sort of interesting
oh my God,
insight which has surprised you?
I think let's start with India.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, people like to talk over each other. And they're so good. In every meeting, they are, I think I learned somewhere that your own name is the sweetest sound in the world. And somehow every meeting, everybody managed to say, blah, 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 Natalie, blah, da, 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 Natalie, da, 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 da. So it's a very effective way of catching people's attention.
Sure.
And it always sounds like every time it's not a discussion, but, everybody is so good at selling.
Right.
And in such a funny way that in the beginning, I was like, why is everybody selling, right? Well, we're just updating and then getting sort of like just chatting and discussing about something and then sharing work, sharing ideas. And then after a while, I just accepted it. It's funny. And then you just have to learn, some markets are very, very structured. So for example, Hong Kong, everybody's very on time. Everybody pride themselves in terms of, doing everything perfectly, right? In some other markets, people are just much more laid back, and then, you need to give a little bit of room of surprise. And then even though this is the plan, maybe 20% of the time, there's nice little surprises. And that's just how it is. That's just how how things flow. So
yeah, it's really interesting. Do you think these cultural nuances ever sort of manifest themselves in the creative work?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think everybody know that classic Thai commercials are always like, there's no logic, but somehow it works. And then
sorry, just explain what you mean by that for people elsewhere.
Oh, okay. So for people who haven't seen a Thai commercial, they're also always very funny, very deadpan. I mean, I'm just generalizing.
Sure.
And it's always, you don't never know how long it is. It's like sometimes it can be 10 minutes, sometimes it can be 4 minutes, sometimes it can be 3, and then sort of like your sometimes Western sort of rules of thumbs of, oh, okay, for first 3 seconds you must have the brand, right, so people can recognize it, and then no longer than 30 seconds or 90 seconds and whatnot, because people don't have the attention span. In some markets, it doesn't work that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A lot of things are just, I think, reflects the local culture, right? People like to be entertained. People like to get together as a group and then, sing, dance, laugh, watch something together. So there's a lot of things where it's quite amusing, if you're the first time come in contact with these, and if you're used to a certain standard, certain way of looking at the world. Yeah. So in the beginning, I was kind of expecting whenever we do work reviews, right, like a certain type of solutions for certain brands, and these are global brands. But then just the amazing way that the teams interpret them in the local flavors. and it works. It just it's quite incredible.
Yeah. Thank you. It's really interesting insight. Now, what advice would you give to people starting a media or marketing career today?
Oh, okay. I think they're extremely blessed, yet extremely challenged. Blessed is because they have endless resources, influences, and sort of like tools at their disposal 24/7 on demand. Now, that's also a huge challenge because you don't have time to make your own decision. So how do you have a strong point of view and see things with clarity, and then make up your mind, what suits you and what doesn't suit you? So what's your voice? What's your thing? I think, again, I mean, like watching teens grow up in this age where everything is there for free, nonstop, making their own decisions and finding a grounding, I think is a very, very difficult thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, back in the days when we didn't have any of these, actually limitations, I thought was quite helpful in having a focus and in making up your mind, your decisions, your choices. It's up to you rather than all the infinite availabilities, sort of like false signals out there.
Yeah, right. Lots in there. And when it comes to you, what would you describe as your own personal, secret talent?
Oh, I think I can make very complicated things pretty simple.
Fantastic.
So I think it ties into that advice of listen well. And so whenever there's a lot of conflicting opinions and sort of like going into different directions, I am pretty good at taking a step back and then prioritize and then look at what is the most important, start with that there, and then focus, and then set some kind of clarity. Yeah, rather than being overwhelmed.
Yeah, that's a great secret talent to have in the industry you're in, the ability to simplify. Amazing. Okay, and where do you get your daily news from? You mentioned the New York Times earlier. Do you still look to the US for inspiration by the sounds of it?
Oh, it's a mix. I mean, I would have to say, unfortunately nowadays everybody is stuck in an echo chamber. So my blend is New York Times, local news, a little bit of BBC, a little bit of what's all my friends and family sharing. So it's a little bit of a mashup. Yeah.
So what do you get from the New York Times and the BBC? What is it? Is it sort of general news and knowing what's going on in the world? Is there are there specific things you turn to which help in your career? I'm just wondering,
Yes, I think the headlines, absolutely headlines, because that's I would say, representing sort of the Western view.
Okay.
And I still love, I think New York Times just does editorial in such a brilliant way, right? So I still, from time to time, I go to the style section, the tea magazine, and then sort of try to keep up in touch with the latest in terms of lifestyle, culture, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, with the BBC, obviously, it's a slightly more European way of looking at things and a non-US way of looking at things. And then, I mean,
do
obviously,
you
Hong
notice
Kong.
the difference between the two?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And the BBC, is that the website, or is it a TV channel, or?
The website. I don't have a TV.
Okay. Wow. Don't have a TV. Yeah. So where do you get your creative inspiration from, just out of interest?
It's really everywhere. Mm-hmm. I think I find, because I'm such an observant person, so there's a lot of things from everywhere that triggers me. And I'm someone who would like to find sort of little anomalies in the world. So whether it's a little fun, habit of someone sitting next to me, a small joke, or, something that's just a bit amusing, in daily life, social media. Mm-hmm. My friends and family, my parents, my colleagues, or big world news. It's everywhere. It's really everywhere. Yeah. Work. Yeah. I'm definitely not all about the work, like getting only my inspirations in the so-called creative world proper. It's everywhere.
Open to everything. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Real life. And for me, life is short. You're here for 80 years. And there's so much inspirations all around, from people, from culture, from the physical world. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Which media brands are most important to you? And with this question, we were thinking about maybe lifestyle, maybe platform based, just how people would like to interpret that.
I actually, the two most go-to, my two most go-to, absolutely, actually three channels. Let's talk New York Times, Instagram. Mm-hmm. Because I actually use Instagram as I follow a lot of inspirations. I mean, talking about inspiration. So, besides being a creative, I think about strategy, big pictures, and whatnot. I'm also very, very obsessed about style, so about design, about fashion, culture. So I follow a lot of photographers, artists, and filmmakers, and whatnot. So Instagram's that's the source for me. I also listen to a lot of podcasts.
Okay.
Yeah. And to get sound bites and little stories, news, a collection of different things.
Right. Okay. And are they global podcasts, or do they tend to be localized, or?
Yeah, global and local.
Yeah. Okay. And any examples you can? I know our listeners, viewers like to, follow up. So if there's any recommendations you have of podcasts they should tune into.
Yeah, absolutely. The New York Times Daily, which I'm sure most people listen to.
I know lots of people in New York Times will be really happy with your plugs throughout the interview. They'll be very happy that it's such an.
Oh my God, it's classy. And classic.
How are things generally in Hong Kong now? Sort of as a pandemic, we hope is sort of in retreat. Are things coming back to normal? Is it how it was? Are any significant differences still?
Well, it depends on what you mean by normal, right? Oh, sure. So everything is contextual. So the difference between Hong Kong and I would say Asia and the Western world is people are so health conscious here.
Mm-hmm.
So, they prioritize health over, I would say, the individual choices.
Okay.
So they're, in terms of the extreme measures of, in the Western lens, some of the habits that the Western world challenged, such as wearing masks, right? Basic things. Here it's welcome. If you don't wear a mask in the public, you're looked at as someone who can potentially endanger the crowd, the group, the community.
Sure.
So it's everybody's responsibility to take care of their surrounding as well as themselves. So with that, yeah, a lot of sort of like, I would say, sanitary measures, heightened awareness is very, very normal here. Mm-hmm. Because health is number one. I mean, if you're looking into the culture, right, food culture, everything, besides taste, there's always a benefit. If you eat a lot of this, then it's good for your this. If you eat too much of this, it's not good for your body and whatnot. Okay. So everything is equal parts taste and then equal parts what does it do for your health. So I think that's something where in a society, I mean, I was in New York in the first year of the pandemic, it's such a different society. So their individual freedom is absolutely important. Mm-hmm. Right. And then people kind of tough it out. So what if you have a sort of like a flu-like symptom? Here it's very different. Also, I mean, here it's everybody lives with 3 generations. Right. So your responsibility of not to get sick is much more important. Right. Yeah, really. Right? It's not just about you. It's yeah. But then, because of this hyper awareness and the diligence that everybody does to try to do COVID zero, because I think most people, they want COVID zero because they don't want themselves nor their family to be affected. Yeah. The rest of what Hong Kong does, eating, shopping, still a lot of that. I think it's just because it's everybody live in very, very small spaces. So they can't stay in. They just cannot stay in. They need their fast-paced shopping, entertainment, social activities with friends, family, mm-hmm. and 3 generations, very, very family-oriented culture here. Yeah, so it's all relative. I mean, yeah, sure. Thank you for that. Shopping is more more in demand than ever. Yeah, it's good to get that market insights actually, and those differences are really interesting, aren't they? So for you personally, how do you switch off from the always-on culture we have? I cook. Right. My little bits of time that I'm switching off from work is improvise on making food, because that's also a necessity, right? I have to eat. So I like making things and getting my hands dirty. So that's the little bit of time that I can do it. And I try to exercise, do yoga, take walks. Yeah, very, very basic. If I do have time, audiobooks, film. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But those times are very, very hard to find nowadays. What are your? But I think Natalie, if we were to come around to your house and you were to cook for us, what would be your go-to meal to give to a guest? What's amazing? With the pandemic, there are 2 things that I cannot live without. One is an air fryer. Okay. One is an Instant Pot. So so anything that is a good stew that usually take a long time, now I can make it in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And at the, on the opposite end of the spectrum, guilt-free, oil-free, crispy fried food. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be the mix that you'll get.
Yeah. Okay. That's your treat food. Yeah. I understood. Thank you. Sounds delicious. Now,
Yeah.
finally, who or what inspires you? I know we've touched upon this at various touch points throughout this interview, but if there's any individual or company or
wow, there's a lot. I mean, I always respect people who have a very, very strong point of view and very strong conviction in what they believe in, because I just think that the world is it's just so overwhelmed with choices, with influences, with voices and hype and trends and all that. So if I see someone who, doesn't matter what they do, it could be a creative, could be a big name, could be a performer, could be an author, could be just someone who's not having a glamorous job, right? But if they have strong convictions, rather than following the trends, those people are inspiring for me, because I think that's how you still, sort of like living a real life in this largely very virtual world full of sort of false signals, I would say.
That's interesting. Are you thinking of anyone in particular, or do you just mean like people with strong opinions in general? Can you elaborate?
Well, strong opinions with reason. So I think I mean, we've gone through a period looking in the US culture, right? For example, in the past 10 years, there's a lot of issues. There's a lot of social justice topics and concerns. And I think there's always a few that are genuinely, thought leaders in various fields.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of Me Too's. There's a lot of people who are sort of like pick easy calls and follow without really deeply processing. So I really respect the originals, the original thinkers. And then, I mean, obviously a lot of these issues and topics, me and my friends, my circles, my colleagues, we discuss a lot. And I would have to say, it's actually kind of easy to have a popular opinion. But when I hear someone who has a very, very sort of like original, convicted voice, that's when I really respect those people. Yeah, it's hard. Again, it's down to nowadays anything's possible. So how do you really have a strong, clear voice and conviction, clear conviction? I think that's the
understood.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at film, right? Film is one of my favorite pastimes, the filmmakers, right? Some of the classic directors and filmmakers, whether they're from the 60s, 70s, 90s, that power, that sort of creativity, that originality, if you're comparing to the newer generation, it's hard for the newer generation of directors to replicate that impact. I think it's because everything is possible. So how do you become original? How do you bring in something new? It's really a big challenge nowadays.
Yeah, well, look, that's great. Thanks so much for spending time with us, Natalie. Really appreciate it. And best of luck with your huge remit. Keep being inspired by the original thinkers. Thank you.
I will be. There's plenty of them here. Thank you. This is a great pleasure. It's a fun chat.
Thank you, Natalie. Some really interesting insights there into Hong Kong and India, and also what it's like to be a creative across such a big global network. I hope you guys found it interesting. To find out more about My Media Life or the World Media Group, do go online, worldmediagroup.com. And until the next time, do take care.